Greetings from Boston. Hope everyone is doing well. We do have some highly anticipated news. Roger Federer has decided to forego the Dubai tennis tournament. He will not be playing at Dubai this year. That means he will have about 2 weeks off before he engages in this very tall task of defending his Sunshine Double at Indian Wells and in Miami. And he will have, again, a big challenge ahead of him there. And the Dubai decision really does feel right to me. It feels like the right thing to do. I know I was arguing a couple of weeks ago that he should probably play Dubai because he could consolidate his point gains and he could insulate himself from Rafa taking the #1 back. But this does feel right. Roger has to make the determination on his own. He knows his own body. He knows what he needs. He knows the rest he needs in order to do this. It's going to be, again, a very difficult task for Federer. He's only defended the Sunshine Double once. He won the Sunshine Double back-to-back in 2005 and 2006. And he didn't win the Sunshine Double again until 2017. So, I mean, if he's able to do that this year, if he can do that this year and repeat his performance from that time of total dominance in 2005 and 2006, well, that will be a sight to see, and that will be proof that Roger, the new Roger, is really probably better than the older Roger, the older dominant Roger, that is, in the 2005, 2006, 2007 period. And that will be something to see. So he knows it's going to be hard. He knows he's only done it once. He knows he did it when he was a youngster. So it's really important to him, and I guess the #1 ranking is not that important to him in terms of hanging on to it. Because listen, if Rafa is playing well, if Rafa is at 85 to 90%, if he can at least defend his points in Acapulco and possibly win the Mexico Open and then go on to Indian Wells and get to, say, the semifinal, I think he will actually retake the #1 position, irrespective of whether Federer wins at Indian Wells. So that will be, again, something that Federer have to take into account, but apparently he doesn't mind so much. Now that kind of dovetails with the clay question, and the clay question is something that folks are starting to talk about. We have a news story from Fox Sports by an individual by the name of Liam Fitzgibbon, wrote an article on February 22nd which argues that Federer should make winning the French Open his priority in 2018, and I kind of chuckled because a few of us here at Tennis Talk Daily have been making that argument now for I think about 2 weeks. Now I made that argument in a video, and we have commenters, and it's a controversial issue. There are people on different sides of that issue, but it's interesting that the mainstream news come on 2 weeks after the little guys on YouTube are doing it. And what happens is this. The mainstream media people, they go on to YouTube, they go on to Twitter, they go on to the blogs, and they raid the videos and comments and blogs for ideas and intelligence, and they then use their massive media platforms to project these ideas and sort of take credit for them. Now, I don't know whether Fitzgibbon came on to Tennis Talk Daily, but I tell you this, I wouldn't doubt it. I have hard evidence that, for example, that ATP Media monitors this channel very closely. I know because we've gotten a copyright strike from them. I know that ATP Media monitors the channel pretty closely, and I wouldn't doubt if some of these other people are coming on this channel, maybe some of the other Tennis Talk channels, there's only a couple of others, and trying to look for ideas, rating the comments for ideas. That's going to happen. But listen, the reality, and we've got proof, the proof is in the pudding, which is our videos and our comments that were posted 2 weeks ago, and which, then Liam Fitzgibbon waits 2 weeks, and he's 2 weeks off the curve, off the wave. But in any case, this is another reason to subscribe to Tennis Talk Daily. Subscribe to the channel to get the news first, to get the analysis first, to get the long view, to get the analysis of all the most compelling questions of tennis, not only the specific players and tournaments, but the historical questions, the philosophical questions, and again, the early the early exposés, as it were, or the early analysis of all of these issues well in advance of mainstream news. So subscribe, give the video a thumbs up if you like what you see and hear. And what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is something that sort of follows on what I was talking about in the last video about Federer doing business with multiple generations. And I was discussing those multiple generations over time, of course, but there are also multiple generations right now that Federer is doing business with. He's 36 years old. Basically, he's doing all of the players that are competitive, all of the players that can actually give Roger a run for his money are younger. Not that they can actually beat him, but they can. The ones that are competitive with Roger, anyways, are all younger. And so I kind of wanted to break down what these generations are, the generations that Roger is facing right now, the live generations, the ones that are playing. And so the generation under Federer is the generation I'll call the 30-somethings. We could call them the millennials. We could call them maybe the old guard. You know, Burdick, Wawrinka, Nadal, Djokovic, Kevin Anderson, Sam Querrey, Delpo and Cilic are both 29. They're going to be 30 soon. You got John Isner, Ramos Vinolas. They're all 30-somethings. They're all in the top 20. They're all 30-somethings, and it's pretty amazing how many of these 30-somethings are still sort of, at least ostensibly, dominating the sport. You have Murray, and that's not even playing. He's still in the top 20, but you have Wawrinka, who's kind of struggling, and Djokovic, you know, big question mark, but still, as it stands, I mean, it's just an enormous amount of 30-something players over 30. In fact, if you round up with Delpo and Cilic, who are both 29, if you just assume they're 30, we have 5 players that are 30 or over in the top 10. And if you expand that out to the top 20, we have 12 players in the top 20 that are over 30, again, rounding up for Delpo and Cilic. That, as far as I can tell, is historically unprecedented. There has been no point in tennis history where there's been so many older people in the top 20. Let me know if you find evidence to the contrary, but I'm pretty confident in that proposition. I did kind of a spot check. I went back to 2010, and then to 2000, and then to 1990, and then to 1980, so kind of in 10-year increments. And again, there's no precedent for what we see today. There's just no precedent. And the real precedent is for the players in their mid-20s to be dominating. That's the prime age for tennis players as a historical matter. And that generation of mid-20-something players basically is what I'll call the lost generation today. The Dimitrovs, David Goffin, Jack Sock, Dominic Thiem, Luca Pouille to some extent. Kyle Edmund is kind of in between, but he's coming up into his mid-20s as well. Milos Raonic, Karina Busta. This is the lost generation. This is the generation whose age would indicate that if they're going to be champions, if they're going to be Grand Slam champions, they should have won a Grand Slam already, right? At 26 years old, 25 years old. If they're going to be stars, then again, by the historical precedent, you would think they'd have won Grand Slams already, but none of them have. None of them have in what I'm calling the lost generation, folks in their mid-20s. And then finally, there's the new generation, the young guns. Zverev, Rublev, Shapovalov, Chung, Tiafoe, these folks who are coming up, and Federer, Grandpa Federer, as we'll call them, at the top of this pyramid, he's having an easier time with the young people. He's really, sort of, to use a term that I've been using a lot, he's just baffling the young folks. He's baffling the lost generation too, but in particular, these younger players cannot figure out Roger Federer. But the younger players are just having a hard time breaking through. And one of the viewers did mention, they need more time. That's true. But if this trend continues, then the new generation, the young guns, they're going to become, they're they're going to get into their mid-20s. I mean, at some point, we're going to have to make a call, I mean, and say that they should be winning Grand Slams by now. I mean, we could say that about Nick Kyrgios at 22 years old, right? He should have some better results at this point in his career if he's going to be a Grand Slam champion. Maybe it's a little too early to tell with respect to Kyrgios. But listen, there is a historically unprecedented number of older players in the top 20. 12 of the top 20, again, if we round up for Cilic and Delpo. And the question is, why? Why is it? Why are there so many older players that are dominating the sport? And I'm interested in your views. I read an article the other day, I think it was an ATP media article, and they said something about, the experience. The older players can draw on their experience more, and that's why they're dominating. Well, why didn't the other players? Why didn't the players from previous generation, Pete Sampras, why did he go on until he was 35 years old and draw on his experience? Now, Pete Sampras is probably a good candidate for that because he kind of went out on top. He did a Seinfeld, right? He went out on top. We don't know what he could have done if he'd persevered into his mid-30s. But again, the experience, it doesn't seem to fully explain why we have so many of these 30-somethings that are dominating the top 20. Is it possibly the racket technology? Is it the different courts, the faster courts? Let me know what you think. Why are the older folks dominating? And then finally, I mean, there is this question about substances, what they're putting in their bodies. And I'm not talking about just, I'm not talking about banned stuff, although we can talk about that too. I'm just talking about what they're putting in their body. What's in those drinks that they're drinking on the court? Those colorful drinks. I mean, even Federer's got a colorful drink out on the court. I've done a little research. I can't figure out what exactly he has in that drink. Is there caffeine? Is it a caffeine substance? Is there tons of caffeine? Are there herbs? Are there kind of stimulant herbs in there? I don't know. I'm not saying it's banned substances, but I'd be interested to know what exactly is he chugging out there on the court right before the 5th set when he comes out and turns into the diamond. Rafael Nadal, I mean, again, I don't want to make any accusations. There was a whisper campaign after Federer won the 2017 Australian Open and then went on to win the Sunshine Double. There was a bit of a whisper campaign. There's no evidence, but there was a bit of a whisper campaign. How? That was miraculous, a couple of people were saying. How did he do that? There was one blog I read where they compared a picture of Roger hitting a forehand in 2014 with a picture of Roger hitting a forehand, I think it was in Miami, and the vascularity in his arm was notably larger and more pronounced at the 2017 Miami Open than it was back in 2014. Now, I'm someone who has a lot of vascularity in my arm as well, and I don't do any drugs at all, and so I don't really think that. I mean, it was obviously hotter down in Miami. I think the 2014 picture was in an indoor tournament, but Federer is tested quite often. The top players are tested quite often. Federer was tested over 14 times last year, over 7 times in competition, over 7 times out of competition. In 2016, he didn't play much in competition. I think it was about 5 to 6 in competition and then over 7 out of competition. So apparently he continued getting tested while he was taking his time off in 2016. But again, there are whispers about that. I really don't know. It's an issue that may come up in the future. I mean, Rafa came out. Did you see him this year when he came back and was starting to play those warm-up tournaments? Showed up at the Australian Open. Well, his biceps looked absolutely huge. I mean, that's just indisputable. They were much bigger. Now, he could have been just working out. I don't know. But there are questions. What are they putting in their body? I'm not saying it's banned substances. Although, listen, back in 1999, Jim Courier thought that a lot of the players on the tour might be taking EPO because he thought it would be the perfect, and that's a banned substance, and that's a substance that you can really take in low dosages and never even worry about getting caught for if you keep it in low doses. But Courier was saying it'd be a perfect drug because in the 5th set you could have all that gas from the performance-enhancing substance. So that's one question too. I mean, is it? Again, I'm not saying anything about Federer, and in fact, I'm very confident Roger Federer is not doing anything banned. But what kind of sort of What kind of caffeine? What's in that bottle? I'm interested. Have the contents of those bottles changed over time? Can we help to explain? Can it help to explain why the older players are doing better? But then it's raising the question that you know, the younger players might be putting the same things in their bottles, so it would be a level playing field there, but maybe it's a way for them to draw on their experience if they can get, you know, enough caffeine pumping them up, and the tennis players do tend to prefer the amphetamines, the speedy sort of substances. You have that, of course, with Andre Agassi, who admitted to getting tested positive for meth, and you have the you know, the Richard Gasquet cocaine kiss, where, you know, he argued that he got cocaine in his body from kissing a woman at a bar. And then Cilic was taking an amphetamine of sorts. So it's the speedy stuff, the stuff that kind of keeps them going, that they prefer. But then, you know, recovery time and endurance are also factors. So what's in those bottles? Again, no accusations against Federer or anybody, not even Nadal. I'm confident, given the testing has been ramped up. But what are they putting in those bottles? And what about the players that aren't getting tested as much as the top players? Because the top players get those, you know, 14 plus tests per year, according to the recent precedent. You know, but the lower ranked players don't get that kind of testing, are not subjected to that kind of testing. And even, I think, you know, as you head deeper into the top 20, it's like that. So in any case, the bigger question is, why all the older players? I'm interested in your views. I want to try to figure this out. Maybe there's an explanation. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel for essential tennis commentary, and give the video a thumbs up if you like what you see in here. I will look forward to speaking with you soon. Bye-bye.